Hello lovely friends, and a very warm welcome to another mixed media tutorial with me, Lisa Taggart. And as you can see, I have the new release stamps, the summer release from Lavinia Stamps, and they are absolutely glorious. I absolutely adore them, and I've had enormous fun creating this picture for you today. So if you're interested in that, let's take a look at the materials used first of all. To begin with, we've got the watercolor card, which is hot pressed. That means it's got a smooth surface for stamping. We've also got our Dinkles again this week, and the colours are sea blue, yellow, porcelain and pink. Some of my favourite colours. We've also got the sprays, the acrylic sprays in periwinkle and bright white. And of course the lovely Elements ink pads in mulberry, blue atoll and confetti. We've got VersaFine Clair for some stamping in Chianti and Rainforest, but any colours you have would do. I've got a mister or spray bottle, any spray at all would do for water. We've also got the blue masking fluid and a little brush for that. A water brush and a dark colour pastel pencil. Any dark pencil of course would do. We've got some Posca pens. First of all, we've got the yellow sparkle, and then we've got the turquoise, the green and the white. We're also using the Zig Clean colour markers. As you can see, I've got a couple of blues, a purple, a light purple and a sort of olive green. I've also got a red, an orange, a peach and a pink. And there you can see. And they're for no particular set. Finally, we've got oranges and yellows along with that. I'm using some salt in this week's project, which is quite interesting. Also some sparkle in the waterfall stickles. And that's that. Now moving on to the stamps. And we have all of these. I've used one from the Bumble Hums, which is absolutely gorgeous. I've used both Bumble and Hum. I absolutely love those. We've got Shadow Bloom, Flower Divine 1 and 2. We've got Moss Flowers, and finally the Gyp stamp for a little bit of texture. So if you want to convert all of those into something that looks a little bit like this, just keep on watching. To begin, we've got our watercolour card cut down to 9 by 7 inches, and we're going to start off with some stamping. I've got my Rainforest VersaFine Clair permanent ink, and really any composition would do. I'm just really thinking which flowers I want at the front, what sort of heights that I want. And I'll be using the masking fluid as I go along in the process of stamping, but I want to build up the height gradually from the left hand side, and I'm having to think about which flowers will be to the foreground. So as I go along, I'm using the masking fluid, and all you do is brush that on and leave it to dry. There we are. Next up, we've got this absolutely glorious stamp. I really adore this one, and as you can see, it's slightly overlapping the large flower, which means that when the masking fluid is removed, the second flower bunch will be in the background. So I'm taking this next flower, which is absolutely gorgeous. I'm not sure if it is 1 or 2, but I want it to have some height. And don't be afraid of raising your stamps even if the stems don't reach the bottom, because as you'll see, I take my dark pencil. This one happens to be a dark sepia pastel pencil, but anything will do, and just draw it in and make it look as if it goes to the bottom. You'll also note that I have manipulated the stem of the stamp to bend when I've put it on the stamping block, so that it's not perfectly straight, just for extra interest. Now I'm moving on to the moss stamps again, the moss flower stamps, and I'm really deciding to put a bunch of flowers in this portion of the composition, but anywhere at all would do. Just put them wherever you like, really. Starting off with this the largest one, and then I'm going to move on to this little stripy job, popping him round about wherever you like. And the good thing about Lavinia Stanza is, of course, that it's the land of magic, and nothing has to be particularly realistic. Everything is magical. You can create whatever composition you want, really. Ultimately, it's all up to you, and it's such fun, really, just to see what happens and stamp to your heart's content. So that's enough for the second portion, and I'm going to paint them in with the fluid and allow it to dry. And I'm moving on to the final section of stamping, and this one is slightly off the card, just a portion of the stamp this time, just to balance the side. And now I'm taking these magnificent bumblebees, which are absolutely my new firm favourites. I know I say everything's my favourite, but I absolutely adore these little bees. They are so delicious, and the detail on them is exquisite. And don't be surprised if you see these being added to very many of my projects going forward. So now fill in those with the masking fluid as well, and wait for it to dry. And there we are, the masking is complete. Now I'm taking my Dinkles. There is a little hole at the top, and a bit like sprinkling salt and pepper. It's like cooking this part. Just a tiny amount sprinkle onto the top half of the page. Now that was yellow. I'm popping in a little bit of pink. I started with the white. The reason I use white is that it mixes and tones down the colours. I want a little bit of blue at the top and some at the bottom as well. Next up, I'll take my water spray and start misting that and seeing what I've got. Now at this stage, if you just want a mottled background, you can leave it at this stage, but I want to keep on spraying water onto it because I want it all to mix together. I want to live dangerously as usual and see what happens. I'm also mixing it with this periwinkle colour because I absolutely love this colour, and I have a wee bit more control over where I put it. Now, I want it to all soak down to the bottom. I don't really want there to be a massive amount of colour at the top. So I'm taking my kitchen towel and dabbing the lines or the streaks off just gently at the top. And now taking the white acrylic spray and allowing that to help do the blending for me. So that's a top tip. If you have colour that is too saturated or needs to be toned down, you can use the white just to spray on top, as I am doing now. So that's grand. It's blended nicely. And now, while it's still wet, sprinkle some salt, any kind of salt. It can be the small grains or the large grain, as long as it's not your kitchen salt. As you can see, this is very mucky salt, and it's used just for crafting. And what happens is when you leave the salt on it, particularly for a long period of time, it absorbs the ink from the page, and when it's dry, as it is now, it will leave all this textural background pattern, which is rather lovely, and you never know what you're going to get. I had hoped that it would be more textured to the bottom. I've rubbed the salt off now, and it is perfectly flat. And I'm moving on now to another great technique, which is the watercolor technique. That's where you use the Elements ink, which is water reactive, and you stamp after having spread some water on top, and what you get is this ethereal sort of watercolor blended inky stamp, and that's what I'm after. I'm taking mulberry next, and this is one of my absolute favourite colours, and I've decided to have a darker one on the other side. And really you'll see my choice of colour is dictated by what colours more or less are underneath. I'm keeping my warm tones to the right hand side and the cooler tones to the pinks and purples on the left. So I'm using mulberry again for this one, and I had this idea that I wanted to have these misty, ethereal type nondescript stamping in the background, so that they really are adding some textural interest but not completely at the front. And bear in mind as well that the masking fluid still hasn't been removed, so you can stamp over the top of the flowers and they will just go to the background. Now this one I think I put a little bit too much water on, but that's fine. Just take a piece of kitchen towel and mop it away, and that it presents the desired effect, I think. So next up I was convinced that I wanted an additional flower. The problem is it goes in a place where there's some lovely texture, and I was very much in two minds about whether to put this down, but the composition I thought required a flower there, so I did it anyway. Hey ho, you get what you get, and you take a risk, but it did cover over that lovely texture, which is a shame. Now I'm taking Della Blue, which is another favourite colour of mine, and adding some purple back in that corner. You don't see it very much, but you know it's there. So that's that part complete, and it's now dry. And I've taken the Chianti colour, which is another lovely colour. It's a deep red colour, and I'm just stamping randomly this beautifully fine little stamp. It's called Jip, and it's again all adding to the texture. The idea is this is a flower meadow, grassland, just wild flowers, whatever, and that gives you some nice grassy texture in the background. So this next part is the removal finally of the gum. Now make sure that the ink underneath is thoroughly dry, and also if you take a baby wipe to the surface of the gum just to make sure that all the ink has been removed from it before you rub the gum off. Also, I'd recommend that you don't use the one finger when you're doing this, otherwise you end up with a little blister. How do I know that? So use different fingers as you go along, and don't forget the bumblebees. So there we are, it's all ready for colouring. We've got our lovely white card. I went ahead and tested some colours out, and you don't want to see me colouring the whole thing. So what I'm going to do is take you through the flowers in each category, if you like. So I've got my red, my pinks and my peaches. I've got purples and blues. I think I have another blue at some stage as well. A couple of yellows and an orange. And also the sparkle pen, and this is the yellow Posca sparkle pen, and a water brush. So we'll start with the glorious large flower at the top, which is going to be one of the feature flowers. And I start with the dark colour. This is a deep red, and basically mix it then with the pink. This one's called peach pink, but it's not very peach actually. The other pinks are more peach. I apologise that I can't tell you which particular set these are from, because mine were bought over many years and were bought, some of them individually, and so my collection is very much a mix of the sets. And as you can see now, I'm taking the water brush and just blending those colours into each other. Now the good thing about the Zig Clean colour markers are that they blend into each other very well without the water pen, so it's really a personal preference whether you just want to stick to the pens and leave the water out. You could also keep the little lily shaped flowers pale pink, that would be lovely too. But when I did the first one, got carried away, got very deep, put lots of yellow and orange in it, and it ended up being quite deeply coloured. But a pale version would be lovely too. And also, I think the picture needed dark as well as light, so it is what it is, and it ended up being orangey red. So I carry on with the water, blend it in, and then go over the top with, that's a yellow, a pale yellow. And then finally, when you're happy with that, take the sparkle, this one's the yellow sparkle, and dot it around wherever you fancy, really. And must say, this really does lift every flower and makes it twinkle, and it's such fun to do that. Now, so I'll show you how I did the little flowers in this section, starting off with the pink, just like that, and then using the water brush again to blend that out. And of course you could just leave it like that, and it doesn't need anything further, but I wanted to add a little bit of purple because I'm always conscious that I want to balance the colours in the painting, and there's a little bit of purple down the left hand side. Now I've taken the red just to darken down the centres, and then of course some sparkle after that, something like that. But of course you can use any colours you want. Your picture won't be the same as mine. It'll just depend on what you have below and how your Dinkles and sprays have mixed, etc. Doing the same again. I thought we'd have sort of yellowy, peachy colours in this flower, and I'm sort of sticking to the same colours for the same flower type, more or less. So this is the wide plain flower with the border, and as you can see, I'm just using the sparkle pen to go round the outside of it, just because you can. Moving on to the stripy flower, I'm going to do purples and blues in this one. Just, that's a nice combination. I think I end up finding like a cobalt blue and add that in towards the end as well. You can see there's a little bit of bleeding has gone on there, but I don't mind. Whatever happens, happens, and it all adds to the interest of the painting. Similarly, the background flowers, if you want to fill those in, that would be good as well. I've done that already in some of them. And now you don't have to wait for me for many hours colouring in. I'm going to go ahead after I've done this little bee, which doesn't need very much colouring at all. Can't tell you how much I love this little bee, or the set of bees. They're just so beautiful. So blending that in, and then using this pale blue for the wings just to give them a little bit of dimension. And I think then finally we use, of course, a little bit of sparkle so they have a bit of twinkle. And then I'll go away and complete the colouring in, and there we are. That's it done, and you can see, I mean, any colours would do, whatever you fancy, and you can see that these stamps are so versatile. You can colour till your heart's content. I'm taking now this dark pastel pencil, but an ordinary pencil would do, or a black fine liner, and I'm really just as you can see, filling in some stems just so that the flowers aren't floating. Of course, this isn't a realistic depiction of a flower meadow, and you know, you don't have to have stems. You could also draw little leaves or use your leaf stamps. I wasn't able to find the type of leaves that I wanted, so I'm quite fascinated by sort of grassy meadows. As you know, I do this a lot in my pictures, add in grass with the Posca pen, so that's what I'm doing here. It looks a bit scary at this stage and to be honest, I was thinking, oh dear, what am I doing? But it needed something, I thought, just to draw it together and give it more interest and more sort of liveliness. So I'm starting off with the turquoise, and adding a few bits of green, and in the end up I refined it a bit more, the stems, I broadened them out, and I added the green on top of the turquoise and was happy with how that looked. So there you are, lots of grass and stems and all mixed in together like a wild flower meadow. So next up, I like this technique is to add some splatters, and again this, like the grasses, helps add to the vitality of the painting. And really, if you haven't done this before, it's a lot of fun. It is a bit random, and you just get a heavy paintbrush and blatter the pen, and the little specks of white acrylic paint come out very randomly, and it's a lovely thing to do. You could also use black and or gold as well, or a mixture of the three, and I covered my little bees there. So there you go. I think that's more or less it. Oh no, we have our sparkle, of course, how could I forget, and adding the obligatory sparkle to wings of any description. It's a must. So this sparkle is called Waterfall, and it's like a goldy pale blue, and it's very nice. I decided then, I don't know if I mentioned, I put an extra little bee in there nestled away just to look like a little distant bee in the background. I thought that helped the composition. So obviously I filled in his wings as well, and now I'm just adding to all the centres of the flowers a few little dots in the background, just to add to the interest of the piece. And there you have it now. It's complete, and that about wraps it up for this week. It's been mounted onto pale cream and black with a wee black border there to complement the black stems, and there you can see the texture that the salt made and all the different layers, how it's come together, and those absolutely delightful little bumblebees which I thoroughly adore. And I hope you enjoyed this week's project, and I hope you managed to get some of the new stamps, which are absolutely lovely. I'll certainly be using them a lot in the coming weeks. And I can't wait to see what you create. I just know there's going to be some fantastic work out there. So please take very good care of yourselves until next time. Thank you so much for joining me today. And above all, get creating, be brave, and enjoy the adventure.